And welcome to the Upside Down. Another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me, of course, is my co-host Matt Dudek.
Hey there, everybody.
Matt, of course, you can find on Twitter at GrizzTalkOU, and you can find the podcast on Twitter as well at Horizon RT and on Facebook at Horizon Roundtable. This weekend was confusing.
This league sucks.
So this entire weekend requires some explanation because let's be honest here. We really thought. Everybody struggled. It was insane, and you go into the conference schedule with some expectations that that things are not as bad as you initially thought, but God forbid that ever happens.
Turns out, for some of us, things are worse than we expected.
And some things aren't as bad as we thought, as it turns out. So, hold on. So let's kind of get into that, because it seems to me that this is a thing that we need to address very, very. I'm going to address this right off the bat, because we got to first talk about Detroit Mercy, who, by the way, and maybe it's because Detroit, we expected much more out of Detroit Mercy this year than we had last year, and they just basically haven't come up with anything up until this weekend. And yet, this weekend they they beat Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky, who, let's face it, has struggled surprisingly in the first couple weekends here.
Northern Kentucky doesn't look right. They don't. It's all injury. I know that.
Well, they really don't. I will say this: they did get Jalen Tate. Jalen Tate is back now, so at least they have that going for them. But Dantes Walton is still out, and it showed. I mean, it really showed. And the funny thing about the game against the Detroit Mercy win against Northern Kentucky is that it was not all Antoine Davis. In fact, Antoine Davis didn't have his typical Antoine Davis type of game. I think he only finished with like 15 points or something. The big key to that win was Justin Miller, who got a double-double, and he was abusing the Norse in the paint. He was abusing them. It was pretty interesting that he was able to do that. But Northern Kentucky struggled the whole game, the entire game, and then of course they turn around and beat Oakland pretty handily, I might add.
Well, and that's what's frustrating for me as an Oakland fan is Detroit Mercy did a really nice job with NKU, and they exploited that middle, like you said. Miller, I think he had 17 points. He played a really solid game, and he's really finding his own within league play. So for Oakland to not turn around and do the same thing, where let's be real, they should have three centers that are at least as good, if not better, than Miller, to not be able to do the same thing and follow that same game plan. That's embarrassing. That's a really shitty game plan, and that's on Campy, in my opinion. I know he has no point guard play, and that's what he's still talking about. We're recording. He's probably still doing a post-game talk to anyone that'll listen about how he doesn't have a point guard. Then stop forcing it.
No, he actually did not put sole blame. I did hear a little bit of the post game in the loss to Northern Kentucky today. The post game, he basically flat out says they don't know how to finish games right now. They do not know how to finish games, and that's
not only do they not know how to finish games. The game plan looks terrible. I just don't understand how the strength of Oakland is definitely their three bigs. How you don't find a way to exploit that, especially when you have nothing guard play. I mean, Trey Maddox is having a good league, but they have no point guard. And okay, so you know that. So don't you find a way to get someone simply to bring the ball up in one way or another, and then get it down low and let your bigs feed each other? And they don't do that at all. And I don't understand it. And I'm not a coach. I realize that, and I'm sure there's way more to it. And it sounds, I'm probably just a video game idiot, but like, I don't understand how they can't get that ball down low and let the bigs play. But when they do, that's where they've had success, and they didn't do it today. And that's the one thing Detroit Mercy really did well against NKU, and that was a recipe for success.
Yeah. You are correct.
Credit to Detroit Mercy. Credit to Mike Davis. He found a way. Antoine Davis only took like 28 shots instead of 40 shots or whatever it was. So that was a good game for them. They spread it around a bit.
They really did.
Down low.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out also too, and this part is important too, because I know we kind of joked around about it on Twitter, the fact that the Detroit Mercy did kind of snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, but they were going up against Wright State with a bunch of veteran guys who know how to turn it around real quick and be able to kind of overcome whatever adversity they have and come out with the victory. That's what they did today. That's how they did it. And there's no shame in losing to Wright State, for crying out loud. There really isn't. I mean, they were picked to be they were picked to win the conference. They were 13-3 going into Callahan today. It's not like it's not like Detroit Mercy completely screwed the pooch. Wright State executed down the stretch much better than Detroit Mercy did.
I think the one thing, if you're a Detroit Mercy fan or just a fan of the league, the thing that's disappointing about that game is that Detroit Mercy couldn't do simple things like inbound the ball.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of those kind of mental mistakes. Even at the end of the game, they never got a shot off with 2 seconds left on the clock because they couldn't get the ball in. And that's a young team. That's okay. Now we got to figure out how to fix that. But that was disappointing because I really thought for them that they had a chance to win that game. And but on the other hand, for the league, it's probably better they didn't, because right now the best thing to happen for this league is for Wright State to roll everybody and get the NCAA tournament. Any losses to someone like Detroit Mercy is only going to hurt Wright State in seeding. And right now, this league is so terrible that's what we have to look forward to, is hopefully getting our best team into the league or into NCAA tournament and letting them maybe have a chance to make some noise, because no one else in this league can do anything. It's abysmal. It's embarrassing.
It's one gigantic slap fight from now. We've been talking about for the entire non-conference, talking about this blanket over 2 through 7. Now it just seems like anybody who's not Wright State, and even Wright State is not immune, as it turns out. It's just it's just one massive slap fight at this point in time. You can't you really can't predict anything. I mentioned last episode that I don't expect Wright State to run the table. Nobody expects that to happen. At the same time, I also didn't expect them. I know you just thought that perhaps Detroit had a shot. Detroit Mercy did have a shot, but Wright State came through.
They almost look really smart.
That's true. That is very true. But unfortunately, that was not to be. It's still kind of I don't know. It's interesting for Detroit Mercy kind of see where they're at, and you see kind of how their dynamic is, because at the very least at this point, at least for now, this weekend, at least they found that they have other options besides Antoine Davis now. That actually will work will actually work throughout the conference schedule. It obviously didn't work in the non-conference, naturally. Of course, when you're playing like 5 or 6 bye games, you have no chance in hell anyway. But as far as the conference is concerned, maybe there is a method to Mike Davis's madness.
Hey, I'm not going to count them out right now. I mean,
no.
I'm not counting out anybody. My brother tweeted me, and we were talking about trying to figure out, who is the number 2 team right now, because nobody can play well. He suggested Purdue Fort Wayne, so I can't even tell him.
Who isn't even in the league yet, which is awesome, by the way. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it is just it's you really can't put a gauge. I know we've talked about that. We talked about this, in years past, about maybe it's how early it is in the season, in the conference schedule, to make any assessments about who's up, who's down, because it always changes. I remember last season when Milwaukee started. I think Milwaukee started like 3-0 last year, We thought, maybe Pat Baldwin has got this whole thing turned around, and then they turn around and lose 11 in a row and finish in last place in the conference. I mean, that's I don't. It seems to me that this probably would be a thing that also happened. I wouldn't put it past any of these teams to do that same exact thing. We're just not at a point to figure out who that team exactly is at this point because you can't tell. I mean, did you really? I mean, let's go to let's go to Green Bay. Did you expect Green Bay to basically beat the crap out of UIC and then turn around and have IUPUI beat the crap out of them on their home court?
They blew them out. What was that?
I don't even know. This is, and this is kind of the inconsistency that Green Bay has had all year because you've seen them produce giant turds during the non-conference, and we thought they had worked that out already. But no, I mean, at certain point in times, IUPUI was up 20 plus on them. And I'm like, what year is this? I mean, you can't put a gauge on and Green Bay, who, beats Northern Kentucky, beats UIC pretty, beats UIC, although I wouldn't say handily. I think that was a little closer than I thought. But IUPUI just went in there, and IUPUI has no expectations at this point in time because they went up to the Resch Center 0-3. They basically, they don't really have a whole hell of a lot of hope, but they turned around and just beat the brakes off of the Phoenix. And I'm still trying to figure out why. I mean, it's just so bizarre how some of these performances have taken place. Just even 3-4 games into the conference schedule. I don't get it.
You really just, I've said it, like, put all the names in a hat and then draw them because it doesn't matter. Outside of Wright State, it just doesn't matter right now. Nobody seems interested in winning basketball games consistently in this league. What do you do with this?
I don't know. All I know is that we do have our as I understand it correctly, John Parker is working on the power rankings. Oh. Dude is pulling out his hair right now trying to figure out what the hell to do.
John, here's the power rankings. Don't. Power rankings. 1, Wright State. 2, doesn't matter. 3, no one cares. 4, screw it. Who's still reading? Like, stop. Just, it doesn't matter. This league is so terrible right now, and nobody seems interested in winning basketball games or playing somewhat consistently.
You know what? I dispute. Okay, I will disagree on one factor. There is at least one team that is interested in winning right now. One team besides Wright State that is interested in winning right now. It's the one team that literally nobody thought was going to be interested in, was going to have any chance in hell of winning anything this year.
Go ahead, beat your Cleveland State drum.
Yes. So, and I said this last episode, and you basically poo-pooed me and said, no, there's no way this is going to happen. And I've said this over and over again. Cleveland State is going to defend themselves into some wins. And it really also helps that Torrey Patton's 100% because that kid played his ass off against Youngstown State. He had 25 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Cleveland State wins. Again, against Youngstown State. Youngstown State fan, I got to ask you, what is it with Jared Calhoun playing Cleveland State? What is it with him playing this particular team? I don't get it. And I said this last episode. Youngstown State has had consistently, on paper, the better team than Cleveland State, and it's produced one whole win over the course of the last 2.5 seasons.
Bob, I will make you a deal. If Cleveland State gets through next weekend and wins both of those games, we can do an entire podcast on just Cleveland State. I will even pretend to care and like Scott Garrett.
Oh, man. Wow. You got yourself a deal. I don't think they're getting out of Oakland alive, but sure, let's go with that. Wait, I'm sorry. They're both home games. They're both at the Wolstein Center, so
Yes.
there is a shot. Um, I think I think the more intriguing matchup because I think Oakland is going to eventually. I think Oakland is kind of going to right the ship against Cleveland State this weekend. I know Cleveland State is doing a lot better than I thought they would, and better than a lot of people thought. And I do think that's going to bear out against Detroit Mercy more than it will against Oakland because I think Oakland has just way too much firepower, and Oakland has way too many big bodies in front. I see where Cleveland State could potentially put Al Eichelberger and Jalen Hill and Spider Johnson, get that rotation going on as opposed to the 4-guard set they've been doing right now, which is actually what they did against Youngstown State too, because they were rotating 2 forwards onto the court, which is something I haven't seen a lot of this year, mostly because they don't have any kind of depth in the front court. But it's kind of it's actually it works. It works.
When is the trade deadline? Can I trade a big for like a guard or like a depth guard? When does the trade deadline pass in the league?
I didn't know there was one. Sorry.
Damn it, wrong spot.
I mean, the best part of the Cleveland State thing is, basically, and I said this last episode, and I'm going to repeat it again, Cleveland State has finally found an actual ball handler, as opposed to whatever the hell was happened during the non-conference schedule where they were handling the ball like Edward Scissorhands. Apparently, Craig Baudouin has decided Dennis Gates has decided Craig Baudouin is his ball handler, and Craig Baudouin has responded by averaging more than 7 assists a game. And if you'd have told me that Craig Baudouin was going to be your primary ball handler at the beginning of the season, I would have been like, okay, I don't know. I mean, I probably would have said I don't know because I didn't know what the hell we were going to get.
Hey, all I know is you got. I would take your team right now over Oakland. That's for sure.
That's insane. I mean, and that's going to be an interesting matchup too, with Oakland versus Cleveland State because we know Oakland's issues with their backcourt and how they have struggled specifically with their ball handling, and then you put that up against a Cleveland State team that defends the hell out of the backcourt. Especially when you got guys like Baudouin and Trago Million and and Cash Thomas, Hugo Ferreira. Though all those guys are going to clamp down. It's going to be very interesting. And I'm telling you, I love the fact that I love how Al Eichelberger is playing. This is the guy we expected to see last year, and we didn't get a whole heck of a lot of him last year. But this year, he is. I mean. I want to stop. I'm going to stop short in saying he can square up against Brad Brechting, but I don't know. Maybe.
Hey, who knows right now? Again, I'm not leading the parade.
I think he handles Justin Miller next week. I think Al Eichelberger handles Justin Miller next week.
Miller was good against Love. I appreciated their battle.
Also, too. I mean, this part is important. Is that against Youngstown State, they had a game plan where Nas Bohannon was going to get his touches, and Nas Bohannon got his touches. He had a double-double, 20-plus points, double digits on rebounds. You knew he was going to get he got his numbers. But what they did at the same time is they targeted Darius Quisenberry, and Darius Quisenberry only got 5 points. So imagine the game plan against Detroit Mercy, where their primary focus at this point in time is Antoine Davis. And not to say that they won't have other options. Obviously, Marquise Moore has been coming up lately. Chris Brandon's been coming up lately, and then of course Justin Miller up front. But I wouldn't put any. I think Cleveland State comes out with the win against Detroit Mercy. Oakland's going to be a little bit more of a back and forth thing, and I think it's going to. And I think realistically, with Cleveland State versus Oakland, I think it's going to come down to who does better up front. And I don't know if I don't know if Cleveland State has it. Cleveland State, Al Eichelberger could probably square up against Brad Brechting. I don't know if anybody's got an answer. Anybody's going to have an answer for Xavier Gilmaze, though. I don't know. Unless
Someone's got to give him the ball first. That's all I've learned.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that I'm. It's amazing. I'm talking a lot more about Cleveland State than I thought I was going to talk about. It's insane.
Well, let's skip over to MKE UIC today.
Yes. So UIC is just such a weird animal, and again, UIC's Steve McClain's in deep trouble. You can tell. I mean, they lose. They got swept in Wisconsin. They lost against Green Bay. Oh man, who the hell drew up that last? 4 seconds on the clock, and you just and Milwaukee's able to get the winning shot.
I mean, Steve McClain is in trouble, like you said. He doesn't have an excuse at this point. Campy's got the transfer excuse. Cleveland State's got the transfer excuse. NKU's been, totally injury plagued. Whatever. Like you hate to see excuses. I'm not saying use them, but there's excuses. UIC right now doesn't have any. They're at full strength. I mean, yeah. They had some injuries early, but they've got everybody right now.
Yeah, they do.
They are simply just not executing, and that's coaching.
No, they're really not.
In trouble.
That isn't. Yeah, and and UIC had every chance to win that game against Milwaukee. And not to say that Milwaukee is blowing everybody away either, but is blowing everybody away either because Pat Baldwin might have some issues too in terms of if Pat Baldwin loses this game, I'm saying he might be in a little bit of trouble in Milwaukee. Not to say that will actually happen. I think I think he's gonna he might get a pass on that one, but now you have a situation where Milwaukee rebounds from kind of going into the buzzsaw of Wright State and Northern Kentucky, going into Wright State and Northern Kentucky, losing both those games, coming home, winning both of those games, and now they don't look as bad. But UIC looks terrible, and it's not again, it's kind of, they suffer from the expectations of what they have on their roster. And you could make the argument early in the season when, your primary players, your star players were hurting or out or not shooting terribly in the case of Godwin Bowen. But you're at full strength now. You have everybody back. What's going on? I don't understand it. If you're a UIC fan right now, you're probably sitting there scratching your head wondering, when is it going to be our time? And it should have been your time this year, but it's not.
If it's not this year, their time's not coming because there's going to be a coach change. Nope. There's going to be there's going to be a couple years out again. It seems to always be the case.
Exactly. You're not, you're starting from scratch. And you're not going to be able to, you're going to be starting from scratch, and you're not going to have you're not going to have the luxury of having what should be one of the best backcourts in the conference. How do you squander that out of curiosity? Because we know what Marcus Adi and Tarkus Ferguson bring to the table. If Marcus Adi and Tarkus Ferguson were playing for Greg Campy right now, Oakland would be damn near unbeatable.
Oh my gosh, you just gave me this. I'd take either one of them. Like I said, I'm willing to make a trade. Like if we can, do a midseason trade, I'm like, my God, like how do you not win games if you're UIC right now? Like, and I mean the worst part is like I said, we all know that McClain's going to get canned. Like there's no way you can bring back.
So obvious at this point.
But even looking ahead, not to jump to 6 weeks from now, a different podcast, but every team in the league, assuming that no one gets wrecked by transfer portal again, every team in the league is on the right path and looking even stronger next year, except UIC.
Yeah, exactly.
The league, I think, will rebound for next year, again, assuming nothing tragic happens. Everybody's on the right path except UIC.
Exactly. And yet here, yeah, exactly. UIC is, this was supposed to be UIC's year. Last year was realistically supposed to be UIC's year. And UIC floundered last year, and they're doing the same thing this year. And there's one common variable in all this, and it's Steve McClain. I mean, it's funny because we talked many years ago about, and I mean, Steve McClain was, but to be honest, I mean, in all honesty, Steve McClain was the guy they needed at the time because remember before Steve McClain, UIC was a complete wreck. I mean, they were even bigger wreck than they are now. But and you should see, Steve McClain did get them to a certain point, but he cannot go any further. It looks like. So you got to find a guy, and you got to find a guy who's going to bring you over the top. And I'm not, and that's going to be on the new AD. That's going to be on Michael Lippitz. And he's going to have to. It looks like he's going to. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's going to end up bringing in his own guy. I mean, it's obvious at this point.
Absolutely.
And who can blame him? I mean, realistically, who can blame him?
You're not going to want to keep McClain there, that's for sure. So
no, he's McClain's on borrowed time at this point. So unless somehow he rights the ship within the next 6 weeks, he could consider himself gone.
He pretty much has to win the NCAA, get to the NCAA tournament at this point. Like that's the only possible way to keep his job, I think.
Do you see it happening though?
You know what? I do, oddly enough, because I've said it before. I think it's going to be easy for Wright State to trip somewhere, and I don't know where yet. I could see UIC putting it together and making a Horizon League run and grabbing a 15 seed in the NCAA tournament, and that's not a good thing for the league. But I could see it happening.
Well, we're kind of at the point where Wright State is probably going to be a 14, 15 seed anyway, so it's not like we're not in play-in territory by any stretch of the imagination. There are, if you can believe it or not, conferences that are infinitely worse than the Horizon League, but we're not at a point where you and even with Wright State, even if they do what they're expected to do and win the conference and make it to the tournament, a win in the NCAA tournament just seems so unlikely at this point.
It does. I could see them probably maybe as high as a 13, but
I see them I would only see them as a 13 if they actually. I would see them as a 13 if they actually did run the table in the conference, which I don't see them doing. That's like the best case scenario.
I see them sliding into a 12 if they just ran everything and they don't lose from here out. I could see them sliding into a 12 seed.
But that is kind of, I think that's kind of pie in the sky. I don't think
absolutely.
I think they lose a couple of games. I mean, goes without saying that I think they lose a couple of games. Win, hopefully later rather than sooner. But it is what it is. But again, with Wright State, you see what this is what a veteran team does. They get down, they overcome adversity, and they win. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what Steve Nagy's got them set up for. And you don't see that a lot in the conference right now. You don't see a lot of that in the conference right now. And it's and that's kind of where we're at right now. Now, as for Milwaukee, I know and as for Milwaukee, I'm still trying to get a read on Milwaukee right now. I can't really tell where they're at in this whole scheme. I mean, they do seem to be a lot, but they do seem to be better than they were last year. But by how much?
I think that kind of solidify. I mean, that's kind of what you can say about the whole conference, and that's probably the problem is many of these teams, they still don't know what they are, and we don't know what they are, and everyone's just kind of scrambling. Wright State knows what they are, and they're playing like they know what they are. Does anybody else have an identity and know how to play? And the answer seems to be not really.
Yeah, I mean, do you expect? I mean, Youngstown State had every opportunity to sit up there with Wright State, be 3-0, and be undefeated in the conference, and it didn't happen. Because apparently Cleveland State is their kryptonite. Still don't understand that one. You look at everybody else in the conference, and you just wonder, okay, what the hell's going on? I don't know. I guess it's kind of an extension. It's funny because it seems like it's such an extension of it's such an extension of what we've been talking about in the non-conference, where the conference, these teams underperformed so badly, and you would have thought they would have not carried that over into the conference schedule, but it really seems like they are.
I mean, there's only 3 teams in the league that are over 500 right now. I mean, that's sad.
That is really sad.
I mean, you've got Wright State at 14-3. You've got NKU, who didn't play the hardest schedule, mind you, and they're at 10-6. And Youngstown's at 9-7, and from there it gets real ugly.
Yeah, you've got like 6-10, 6-11s, and then of course Detroit, who's like what, 2-13?
3. Yeah.
3-13.
But one of those is NKU. Then you're like, what the hell? So again, just throw them in a hat, draw a name, put them in the tournament, in the Horizon League tournament, and let them play one more game. It's almost not fun, but it's kind of more fun in a way too, just to watch and see what the hell are we gonna get today.
Hey, you know what? It makes our job fun. Get to figure out what the hell's get to talk about what weird shit goes on in week in and week out.
I don't know about you. It makes it hard. So like most days, if there's Horizon League games going on, I've got it up on my phone and I'm watching the scoreboard and I'm kind of flipping on my iPad like to different games is how I like try to watch stuff. It makes it really hard because I don't even know what to tune into because everything is just such a shit show. You're like, wait, why are they doing that? Wait, Detroit's up on Northern Kentucky. Like what? I don't even know what to watch. Like there's nothing you can count on right now.
I know.
This league, man.
This freaking league. And we have Fort Wayne to look forward to next year.
Yeah, great. What do we got coming up this week? Anything exciting to really look quote unquote forward to?
Well, we have I have something to look forward to, especially if they sweep Cleveland State against Detroit and Oakland. I don't know about you, but I'm personally looking forward to that one now.
I'm not looking forward to anything
more than I was expecting to. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, I think this will be an opportunity. Well, I also like to see how Youngstown State does against Oakland. Do they rebound? I would hope they rebound. That would be nice. Like good gravy. But we also have the Green Bay. We also have the Saturday game. We have the Milwaukee Green Bay game on Saturday. That'll be interesting.
I'm excited for that one.
I'm interested in seeing how, because again, I can't get a read on Milwaukee, and Green Bay has just been so erratic. I mean, that's the only way I could describe him, as erratic.
It's like a Jekyll.
That's what they are, man. It's insane. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, looking at the schedule, outside of that game, there's nothing that I'm like really excited about. Like, I'm not gonna get super excited about Detroit Mercy Youngstown State. Like, okay, I mean, they're gonna play a game. It's fine. Northern Kentucky at UIC. That should have been a great game. That should have been.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that game's on ESPN too. But But that's not necessarily the two teams that we want showcased right now either. Like it's not, at the end of the year that looked like that should be a marquee. Yeah, this is a game. Right now, I don't think anyone, even Northern Kentucky fans or UIC fan, if they still exist, I don't think anyone's excited for that game. Like that's not what we want on national television. Just like we didn't want Oakland Wright State on ESPNU the other day, and we saw why. It was ugly. That's not a good look for the league.
Oh, that was really bad. But yeah, I mean, I mean, what is your alternative though? Those Friday games are either Northern Kentucky UIC or Wright State IUPUI. Do you really want to put IUPUI on national television under any circumstances right now? No, especially not against
No,
Wright State. I mean,
no. So
by all, by all accounts, unless Wright State really just basically goes into this bizarro portal again, we are living in unless we aren't actually living in the upside down, Wright State should dominate that game. I mean, just dominate it. And there's just no way, shape, or and I say that right now, and then IUPUI makes it close, which will just annoy the crap out of me.
in some ways, it almost feels like Wright State needs to drop a game to get that monkey off their back, so they can just play basketball. Like I don't
if they're gonna do that, let it be. If they're gonna do that, let it be against UIC. Okay, just let it be against UIC. I'm okay with that. At least with UIC, at least you should think that UIC should square up better against Wright State. I've said this before, and I'll say it again because this is kind of what's basically salvaged UIC's season last year is going up against Wright State. I mean, I say salvage like they like something miraculous happened, but let's be realistic. That's generally not how it goes. I really do think that it's in our interest that Wright State sweeps again, but who knows? Should be I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion that that's the case, but you never know. I mean, it's been such a weird. I mean, even the first 3 or 4 games. And again, I think I mean, we talk about this as if the season is basically a wash. We still have 14, 15 games in the season left. We still have that many games, so anything is possible at this point.
anything's possible, and I mean the reality is everyone's still battling, especially for that 2 spot, because that 2 spot does have the double bye this year. So
yes, it does. This is true. And
everything's still up in the air. Anyone can still grab it. I mean, obviously, Wright State could go on a free fall and could follow the first place, but we're going to assume that's not going to happen. So really, everyone's still battling for that second place, and it's still very much anybody's game after the 2 weekends here.
Absolutely. And I don't think, although, yeah, absolutely. And, it's weird because we've had these levels of the league, of the conference in general, where you have Wright State up top, and then you have the second tier that's not really that second tier anymore, because that second tier was supposed to be Northern Kentucky, Green Bay, Oakland, and maybe UIC, and all of those guys. Every one of those teams have had issues, and then kind of that third tier where you have Milwaukee and maybe Detroit Mercy. Milwaukee still I would put in that third tier, and Detroit Mercy. I mean, Detroit Mercy is playing better than they were. I'm not completely sold on them yet. And then that bottom tier where you have Cleveland State and IUPUI, and Cleveland State is not. I don't consider Cleveland State in that bottom tier anymore. And maybe I'm kind of, maybe it's because I'm totally delusional, and that could be the case. But at the same time, like I said, the way they have been playing over the course of the last month, even it amazes me that they and ask any Cleveland State fan. 5 wins was probably, we thought, was kind of the ceiling for this team. They have 6 now, so anything else at this point is kind of gravy for Cleveland State. Also, like to point out the fact that somebody at the Cleveland Plain Dealer finally decided to send somebody to the damn game this week. Finally, after 6 months of fucking ignoring them.
Here's where I will give Cleveland State credit, which I don't like to do right now. Dennis Gates is clearly coaching, and his team continues to improve. And there's something he said for that, because you look at a lot of the teams in the league right now and you don't see improvement, but you see it in Cleveland State, and that tells me that they're still having great practices and getting better.
Yeah.
And There's something to be said for that. Dennis Gates can coach. He's showing that, and imagine when he actually can, do a little recruiting, which he's been doing, and
Yeah.
have some time with the team. Like that,
He
that could
actually,
be a team in
in
the
fact,
future.
he actually has one of his fall signees, Alec Oglesby. He actually graduated. He actually graduated in December. He's enrolled now. He
Okay.
actually is going to be on campus, enrolled at Cleveland State, starting in January.
Can he
I
play on
mean,
this like scout team at that point? How does that work?
I believe he does get a semester where he will be redshirting. I believe that is how that's going to work. But
Cool.
it's interesting. Well, and you got to remember too, Dennis Gates not only had to bring in this team on the fly, but he also had to sell those guys who might have been in who were still on campus, and those guys who were in the transfer portal, like a Jalen Hill and a Spider Johnson, sell them on coming back. So, as far as I could tell, the buy-in is there, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen this in years. I didn't see this. I never saw this during the Dennis Felton era. Never saw it. I didn't see it. I really didn't see a lot of it in the last 2 years of the Gary Waters era, because I really think after the 2014-15 season, that was just kind of the beginning of the end in the Gary Waters era. But you see it, but there seems to be so much more buy-in with Dennis Gates, and maybe it's because of the fact he's a Leonard Hamilton disciple, and and Leonard Hamilton. I don't know if you noticed, but Leonard Hamilton doesn't look like he's aged in like 20 years.
That is a
He's
thing, yeah.
he is 70 years old. You can't tell. Um, but yeah, I mean, just being able to take that and really at least getting the most out of what we consider to be a fringy D1 roster at the time, to get as much as he's gotten out of it is a freaking miracle.
So basically, to recap, the league sucks. Wright State's still winning. Cleveland
Yep.
State's actually looking decent, and that's about where we're at right now.
Pretty much. I mean, go figure.
Isn't that the TLDR on this one here?
Pretty much. So if you got through this entire podcast, you're thinking, "Oh dear God, we already knew all this crap. Why did we listen this whole time?" Probably because you like hearing what we have to say.
You know who likes to hear what we have to say, oddly enough?
Yes. I know who you're going to say, so go ahead and say it.
And we need to get him on hopefully in the next week or two. We got to reach out to him. Is Jordan Burnfield, who calls a lot of the ESPN stuff. He was talking about that he likes to listen to what we have to say because we're fans that care, and it gives him a good idea of getting into some Horizon League games when he's got a call. So what's up, Jordan?
And we absolutely don't, and we do make a concerted effort not to pull everything out of our asses too. So
I don't. Everything is straight out of my ass, but that's fine.
Yeah. So so Jordan, get ready. We're gonna get you on. We're gonna try to get you on here at some point in time. Speaking of people we need to get on, we got to get Justin Kinner on at some point in time too.
Absolutely.
I know I've been putting that off because too many things going on at the end of the year for me. So now that all that crap settled down, it's time to buckle down and get serious about that.
It's time to get serious about Horizon League basketball.
You can't even say that with a straight face.
Absolutely not.
You can't say that with a straight face. It's like
coming to you with the Horizon League basketball.
No, this that doesn't sound right.
Serious business, Horizon League.
It sounds like it makes about as much sense as a hubcap on a tractor.
Yeah, well, we'll keep polishing this turd and talking about it, and hopefully see where things end up here.
Well, if we're the highlight, we're probably the highlight of the weekend for everybody. Like, especially those people who lost. Except they'll probably be like, "Oh God, I don't want to hear this shit anymore."
Yeah, I wasn't terribly excited to talk about. That's why I pushed through everything Oakland. I don't want to talk about them.
Yeah, well, the big test is going to be, Oakland needs to have a good showing this weekend, or Greg Campy is going to be even more upset than he is now.
I mean, good news is angry Greg Campy is really, really fun to watch.
Oh, he really is. He really is.
So we could look forward to like some super pissed Campy.
Oh yeah, I would not doubt it. I don't know if that especially after this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. Or I
Sounds
will.
good.
I would like to look forward to it. If he's mad, then that means Cleveland State probably won. At which point in time, I'm going to be super happy. So there you go.
There you go.
All right, that about wraps it up for us here.
That's
So
enough. That's enough
so yeah,
Horizon League basketball.
so you can catch episodes of the Horizon Roundtable and John Parker's poor power rankings. That poor bastard. I can't believe he's going to keep doing this. At horizonroundtable.com. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, and I'm sure we're still on your Amazon and Google devices. I'm sure everybody's really happy that that's the case. So with that said, we're done, and thanks for listening.